Hello everybody! For today's session, I got my very dear and close friend, Electra, who is a futurist accountant. And I have never met someone like yourself who is truly in love with the work that you're doing, especially being an accountant. So I'm very glad to have you here to learn more from you. And in addition, we got a lovely view of the beach here. So it's a very nice way to kick off our conversation.
Thank you for having me, Alta, and it is just such a privilege and a pleasure to be in techno-optimists' paradise with people who we've had so many good conversations with, and you're bringing those conversations out to the world. Great thing to do.
Thank you, and that's how it all started.
Yeah.
I kept thinking, I need to do a few one-on-ones with people. I want to learn more about them, because every time I leave a conversation, there's something new that I walk away with. And it all started in one of the conversations I had with you. So you were the first person I asked if you wanted to, have it with me in front of the camera.
Oh, okay. Knowing that I would say yes.
Yes, because I was always like taking a lot of mental notes in my head. And I thought, wow, she's so passionate about the work that she's doing. It's rare to see that in the average accountant out there, and to see how you have bridged so many different things with accounting and technology and your own vision got me so interested in the work that you're doing. And I am not an accountant by any means, but it was fascinating to always have a dialogue with you, and I felt that it was very educational, and I thought more people need to hear about this. And that's when I got the idea, I'm going to take the one-on-ones that I want to do with people into camera and test things out. So you were the incubator of this idea that came to my head.
And look, I just think you're going to be it's a natural gig for you, because you're with your coaching niche focus with professionals. You do draw out these conversations that you get valuable tidbits from. So let's go.
Thank you. Let's go. Let's do it.
What are you going to ask me?
So you have been involved in the Bitcoin scene for quite a long time, and from what I know, you started incorporating Bitcoin into your accounting practice since the early days. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Not into my own practice, but in my
13?
practices for clients. But later I realised that, over time I realised that Bitcoin and accounting are inextricably linked. And so that's why I've been an advocate, an evangelist, I guess, for bringing Bitcoin and accounting into the same sort of frame of mind, purpose and professional sphere. So.
And how did you see the opportunity such early on? Because it feels like it was yesterday, but
no, it's been a while, hasn't it? Like 12 years ago.
ago.
We're coming up to nearly 12 years ago. I became aware of Bitcoin because I work with creative industries, startups, people who make something out of nothing, interesting people who were using Bitcoin to pay their overseas contractors, some artists overseas. And I was like, oh, why do you have a company in Cyprus? What's going on here? And they said, oh, that's so that we can pay our suppliers in Bitcoin. And I was like, what is Bitcoin? This is in 2013. We hadn't really heard of it. I had heard of it, but I didn't know about people paying with it. And so I had to understand it and book it in their company accounts, get it into Xero accounting software. Well, you can't do a bank feed from the blockchain. You have to but it wasn't even money. There was no guidance about it at all. So I got my client explain it to me. I understand why you're using this. This is solving a business problem. That regulations and banking restrictions are stopping you from doing business in the world. And why should we be stopped from doing business in the world? You're not doing anything bad. You're just trying to do business. And as an accountant for businesses and startups, I want them to succeed. And I'm like, yep, this is efficient, this is practical, this is cheap. Let's just figure out how to book it so that you've got your accounts up to date and you're compliant. But that was quite hard to figure out. But I just thought of it as money, it was just money, foreign money. But then the tax office came out and said, no, this is a capital gains tax asset. And I've been very confused since and thinking, well, that's it. We've just got to change everything and start again. So that's where I think accountants are very much needed, because if Bitcoin is money, right? Money is technology. Accountants know money. accountants are technologists. Well, the ones in the future will all be technologists. Many of us are now. So money, technology, Bitcoin, accountants, it's the same game. Bitcoin is accounting, accountants are Bitcoin, and that's what I'm about.
And did you feel a change in the way you look at your profession before and after Bitcoin?
Well, things take time. They don't happen overnight, realisations. Like in 2018, the town I lived in, since then, Gordon Christian, who is co-founder of Digital Playhouse with me in Agnes Water in Australia, he got all the local shops and cafes and hotels, about 35 of them in our little town, to accept Bitcoin. So people could come from around the world and experience having a holiday paid in Bitcoin and other crypto, but we just say Bitcoin. And that was amazing. People did come from overseas and had a holiday in Agnes Water and Bitcoin. You can find it on the internet. So we were Australia's first digital currency town, or Bitcoin Beach, in 2018. And so that made me realise, well, this is fantastic. I see a world without borders when it comes to doing business. And it just made so much sense. Yeah, so I decided from that point on to take more of a focus and think about for myself. Yeah.
I can see even the change in energy when you
I get
speak
excited.
on the level of enthusiasm when you speak about it, because I was shocked, and I'm not lying when I say this. When I first met this woman, I thought, I have never met an accountant who is so passionate every time she speaks than Electra.
Thank you. Well, Bitcoin is exciting. It offers hope for the future and that we can change and fix things, and it represents a future. I'm not Bitcoin only. We're going to have a multi-chain, multi-currency future, but built on Bitcoin principles and foundations. It's a bright future, and this is a great opportunity for accountants to really play their part. 600 years ago, we had Luca Pacioli. Okay, he's our hero in accounting. Well, now we have Satoshi Nakamoto. He's our next one, and that brings in triple and quadruple entry accounting. So that's what Bitcoin heralded, and accountants need to get onto that.
I have never heard that analogy. Satoshi is the second founder of the new way accounting works.
It's the new dawn of accounting. Come on, guys, get on board. This is exciting, because everyone in accounting is depressed. It's hard work. We're trying to navigate all these ridiculous conflicting regulations and trying to look after our clients. They all work long hours, but especially public accountants. It's stressful. Many are dropping out. Not many are coming into the profession. But the ones that are getting into Web3 and crypto see a bright future. So when you see a bright future, you hone in on that and you work with the people who are building the future, and it's a positive place to be in. So,
That is a very exciting point that you're bringing, because you are so right that when you look at the professions that are the most dissatisfied with their careers, accountants can be one of those who are suffering and are trying to find ways to get out of that, because it feels sometimes dry from at least the friends that I have met that are in that profession. But when they come into the world of crypto, it's like a whole different world where I can see them literally starting on the DeFi sector, and their world turning upside down. Because it is
new purpose,
never ending. You learn something every day. You can spend a decade and you will always be finding new things and new advancements all the time, and new ways to help others. So I think that you have a really strong message for other people who may be in that profession, who are not happy, and they're trying to find a way into finding purpose.
And that's it. Drawing on your skill sets, your ability to navigate the current bureaucracy, because nothing's going to happen overnight. We're not going to change. We're not going to decentralize everything overnight. We need to straddle. If we're in a parallel economy, we're going to be straddling the legacy economy and systems and the new world. But as long as, I think that many accountants shy away from crypto because it's complicated, because the old systems and the legacy regulation and tax laws and accounting standards, they're not being updated. Those guys have no intention of updating it for us. We've got to do it. So we've got to come into this space not seeing it as a burden of extra work to do, because it's hard and it's high risk. Keeping your clients compliant in this space. It's expensive for them. So we've got to come up with the solutions to make it possible to streamline it. And so, there's been some great work done by, I mainly evangelise what others are doing to just get it out, amplify to the world that there's stuff happening here and a role for accountants. But yeah, like software like crypto subledger software and back office systems that enable you to streamline your blockchain and DeFi data into a reportable form in your accounting software. That kind of practical stuff, it's hard work at first, especially if a client's bit behind and a bit of a mess, but we've done it before. We do rescue jobs, but once you get that client, into something just sort of repeatable and easier to manage going forward, it's very, very satisfying. And so you've got to focus on that. You've got to be future focused rather than I'm just and rather than just thinking, I'm just trying to make things compliant with these difficult clients that don't want to pay me this much money for this much time. You got to get it across to them that I'm going to keep you safe. You're going to be able to run your business in this space. You're not going to be the low-hanging fruit for audits. We're going to do things the right way, and that means that when your business is starting to boom in the crypto era, you won't be putting out fires with regulators and tax office. You'll be able to focus on growing your business, a successful business, and bringing more people into this space. And so, having that sort of builder's positive mindset's really important for accountants to get into, which is hard when you're kind of buried in heaps of work and working long hours and you've got a mortgage to pay. People can't, see it, that bit of sunlight coming through the trees.
And pardon my ignorance on this, if I am understanding right, the clients that come to see you are getting your support in translating a lot of their crypto assets and money in order for them to file their taxes with the regular governments in their regular legislations and
and it's often complicated because it's cross-jurisdictional, different country systems that don't match, and reporting in multiple different currencies, which I think a Bitcoin unit of account is going to solve, but we'll get onto that. So it is complicated, and sometimes they come to you, like they'll set up their business with crypto and they haven't set it up right from day one because they're all busy with the startup, so much going on. We see people around here, like accounting gets done later. And so usually when you're wanting to set up a system, you're also cleaning up the past while dealing with the fear of being behind in taxes and audited and not having any visibility over your position and your cash flow. So it's usually quite hard at first, and we do see clients who are a few years behind and have the regulators breathing down their necks. So we've got to provide that protection to get things in order and expertise to get things in order. But then we come into our foreign, and this is where I think we might need a bit more collaboration in accounting. If we can get more of the traditional accountants to understand crypto, they can buckle down and do that fix-it work while I'm simultaneously working with them or another accountant is to deal with the present and going into the future. There's a fair bit of work involved. So, but you feel more motivated to do that hard work when you feel like there's going to be payoff for you long term. So as an accountant, you've got to see that this is the space where I'm going to be successful in long term. So it's worth putting the effort in, right? And because accountants are hearing all this stuff like, you're going to be replaced by AI and tax will just happen, governments are going to automate everything. And what do accountants do? No one understands what accountants do. And I could explain that, but that's what accountants are very confused about because they're being told you're becoming obsolete, we don't need you in future. Young people aren't coming into the profession but if accountants know about Bitcoin and DeFi, crypto, and where it's going, if they can see that, once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? Once they see it, they'll commit.
It's literally like taking the red pill from the Matrix movie.
It totally is.
You just don't go back.
Yeah, and that's what I've seen. It's very inspiring people in this space since about 2001, when I started my little Accountants on Chain knowledge sharing group. We started to get to know people in the space around the world that were leaving like Big Four accounting and becoming Web3 CFOs for startups, and public accountants who were moving into the space as well. Different age groups, mostly younger ones, but some of the older ones have a lot of experience to offer with providing protection. Yeah.
And hence why you're saying it has to be a collaboration, because you have the founders, the individuals, the governments, and then the accounting associations.
We only have so much bandwidth and time. People think of accountants just doing numbers, but we don't. We're across broad areas of commercial law, corporations law, international business and tax. Depending on where your clients are, you are constantly. A day doesn't go by as an accountant where you aren't learning something. You're learning accounting technologies, systems, data flows. You're helping a client with their cash flow projections while you're also dealing with compliance reporting. So there's accountants do a lot, but I distill it down into 3 core things that accountants provide for people to understand when they foolishly say that we'll be replaced by AI. 3 things are accountability, then there's advocacy, and then there's trust. So accountability, well, it's being accountable, isn't it? A blockchain's pretty accountable.
And it's public, it's fully transparent.
Yeah. So it's about providing accountability. But where there are third parties involved, there might not be that accountability if they're not doing their reporting right. So we make sure, we're kind of like the guardians of truth. And we make sure that's going to be, those accounts are going to be in order every month and people can rely on them. That's accountability. Advocacy. When governments are saying, no, these are the rules, if you don't pay this tax, you're going to jail. AI is not going to go into bat for you. That's an Australian expression, go to bat. Meaning, is not going to stand up for you and represent you to the government. So something we provide as tax agents is that, or attorneys or enrolled agents, whatever, in a country, you've got to have someone between you and the government. So if we become obsolete, good luck. You need advocates. You need someone between you and the government, okay, and guiding you. It's like legal representation. And then there's trust. We're constantly being asked to sign accountants' letters, to provide assurance. Yep, this is correct. We can rely on this. We can trust this. So, but there's nothing more trustworthy than the trust machine. That's Bitcoin and open blockchains, right? So there's a merger going on there. So accountability, advocacy and trust, it's Bitcoin and open blockchains, and it's us. We've got to implement this for the world.
That's a lot of responsibility and very needed. Very needed in the last couple of years as more people own more and more crypto.
Yeah.
And filing this with the regular software system of self-taxation application that you do for your annual taxes.
That's a good point. We're doing more ourselves.
It's not going to cut it off.
Yeah.
Let aside, of course, if you are an organization, of course, every organization does hire, generally speaking, an accountant. But if you're an individual, you can't figure all this out. It just sounds a nightmare to me. I don't think I could do it.
Well, you live in fear, and fear is a very disempowering thing. From my experience in 25 years, I have always dealt with people who are in fear of being put in jail for their taxes. And
that's
taking
deep.
away that fear is big. And we are also in the emerging technology space. We're kind of interesting, they can educate themselves by auditing us. It's how do I say this? I think as we become known in this space, more active in this space, we possibly do become targets. So I think it's really important that we do have this advocacy body in the sort of startup society, network, state network, school ecosystem around the world. So what I'm really focusing on here at Network School is how to get my connections and their connections and leverage it into an association of advocacy that's aligned with the mission here as a kind of protection and to help us grow our numbers, people who will be less fearful to come into this space and be part of a parallel economy in the future economy.
Do I hear that being a big mission already? Is that your mission?
Yeah. I'm gonna need to don't die. It's gonna take a long time.
Brian Johnson will be like, you can consolidate it in 3 words. But okay, so this is your personal mission then.
Yeah,
I'm just hearing it very passionately come from within.
Well, that's it. I can't just do everyone's accounts, right? There's a lot of us. If we're going to scale, and when you're in this space, you think big, right? You read the network state and you think big. So whatever idea you have, read the network state, think bigger. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to scale the impact to be network state size. And that's going to, I think, be achieved through a concept of a professional association that is aligned. You know, parallel institutions are part of a parallel economy, parallel country, cloud country. It's just one thing I believe I can contribute from my connections and knowledge to contribute to the growth of network state. Yeah. Huh. So that's what I've been yabbering on about. Well, I've been here for the last 3 months, and it's been really helpful.
It's really a big ambition that you have. It's a huge thing because majority of people's assets are purely living on crypto.
There are.
We're talking about millions of dollars. And when you say the worst people living in fear because they don't want to go to jail, that sounds pretty deep to me. So
not that they're doing anything wrong, it's just that the regulations are unclear and very difficult to comply with, and there aren't enough people who can help you get your accounts in order, you know.
And with that line of thinking, how do you see this association that you envision working in parallel societies and network states collaborating with the average day-to-day regulators in governments and the average country?
Okay, good question. Well, I think just being part of it, like I'm like a network school resident, right? So I'm living it, I'm part of it, I'm known, people know, go and talk to Electra, I tap into my network to find them someone. So let's just make that a bit more scalable and efficient so people can find the solutions they need on the ground here. So, okay, but longer term, bigger thinking, it's about also many accountants work in strategy. You know, we are strategic thinkers, we're problem solvers. And we'll be thinking about, well, if there aren't accounting standards for DeFi, like if there's no guidance and there's no rules that have been written for DeFi, and there aren't, you know, like gap accounting, for example, you get a bit lost with some of the newer stuff that's coming in that you're using in your business. So there are accountants working together, working on a project, for example, SODA, Statement of Digital Assets, which exists to fill in the gaps in GAP. But what that represents is just a decentralized accounting collaboration to come up with the standards that we all agree on, that we all have consensus on, you know, just like Bitcoin consensus. We all agree these are the rules. Even if the government hasn't caught up with it yet, this is how we're doing it. And eventually the governments will just accept, oh, well, they've figured out how to do it, they all agree on it, let's do it too. So we can become influential, highly influential. I don't think, you know, as Balaji says, you don't try to reform, you replace. So if we kind of come up with have these people as part of us, our societies, they will come up with the new rules and they will negotiate. There'll be diplomats with governments to say, well, you know, why don't you do it this way? Why don't we do it this way? Do you want these people who are quite economically empowered in the Bitcoin and crypto era to be living in your country and paying taxes? Well, our people just pay 10% tax. Do a deal, you know? Maybe that's how it'll work in future. But when you've got enough people who agree on something, on how something can be done, they can influence government and regulators. So I see us coming, if we align with network state societies, then I see us coming to the same table. We're becoming competitive, you know, with the other influences of government, which are from, you know, maybe big tech, big companies, but as a decentralised body of accountants with a lot of people who have a lot of capital collectively. And yeah, you see where I'm going with this? I haven't defined my thoughts yet. I need to sit down and write this down like a...
This is a vision.
Yeah.
This is a vision.
But it's very much aligned with Balaji's network state and reinventing regulation vision. He's had more time to sort of refine and articulate it, which we've been, you know, watching for the last 90 days, which has been wonderful.
Yes.
And that's really helped me think, yeah, I need to get this like a blueprint. And so that's what I'm working on in 2025. Yeah.
And is there anyone or any organization at all around the world writing policy for accounting when it comes to crypto?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are very experienced people. There are, and in the blockchain industry, many tax lawyers I know who are writing submissions to government to help them with their policy. They're not being listened to as much. But I think it's all, you don't need to regulate Bitcoin, right? It is the most decentralized, secure, permissionless network in the world. It doesn't need regulators. It's totally trustless, okay? What you need to regulate are third parties. Bitcoin has no third parties, okay? But as soon as you have a crypto exchange or, other people controlling your assets or smart contracts with, you don't know who the signers are in your DeFi protocol, where there are third parties involved, that's what needs to be regulated. People issuing tokens. Okay. So, and this is where accountants need to come in, and I don't do the risk analysis framework that standardize it, what the trust assumptions are. This is why they need to learn Bitcoin, because it's the pinnacle of trustlessness, okay? And we've got to work our way down from there, what needs to be regulated. And I think if we can get my industry to really understand, for one, Bitcoin doesn't need to be regulated, but what does, then we can come in and sort of rewrite things and things, to do with I think we need to start again with tax law. Yeah.
So what you're saying is that there are people doing this in segregation and isolation across various parts of the world, but there is that need to bring all of those people together to have a conversation.
We've got to do the bigger picture. I think what's happening around the world at the moment is that we're tinkering at the edges with a bunch of different tax systems and regulatory frameworks that are not aligned. And I think we've got to have standardisation that is being led by network accountants, I've dubbed them. So
this is where the network states and startup societies come in place, because that's when they can speak to each other, like a Suzalu speaking to a network state, to Vitalia, and other sort of brands and organizations coming together to be able to facilitate bringing all of you
a borderless economy. How is it going to work? I mean, in 2012, when I was doing my Masters of International Taxation, I often bring this up, I tried to write a thesis on a worldwide tax system and how it would be administered. And I was thinking about a body of representatives from countries, and I just couldn't work out how it was going to work. It was just too centralised, and no one agrees with each other. But since then, I've thought, well, it has to be like Bitcoin. It has to be as decentralised as Bitcoin.
Tell us a little bit more on how you see Bitcoin being that, you call it unit of account, or like main metric to reference to.
Okay, well that's a good way for accountants to come in. Like, I'm working on a, just to go back a little, one of the projects I'm also doing at the moment, I call it Bit by Bit. I'm mapping Bitcoin knowledge and principles, concepts and principles, to the accounting competencies framework. And there are about 19 different competencies in the areas of like ethics, technical, professional and management competencies that we have to do what we do. And I'm overlaying Bitcoin over them, making them contextualizing Bitcoin to accountants' knowledge, so that our education is written, our professional education is written that way. So then accountants will understand Bitcoin, everything from the mining, how proof of work ensures the trust machine works, and everything about Bitcoin. From that point, they might start to see themselves as knowledge nodes. You know how in Bitcoin's, the ledger's maintained, synchronized by nodes all around the world. So conceptually, accountants will start to see themselves as Bitcoin. I need to write about that. Now, Bitcoin as a unit of account, well, we understand, Bitcoin changes how we understand money. So when we think of Bitcoin, we have to try to stop thinking about money in traditional ways, or traditional in our lifetime ways. What we need to think about are really ancient ways that people had money, and it was through little ledgers of IOUs in our brains and social consensus on Rog here has the biggest stone outside his house and the most colourful beads. He's the boss, he owns the most wealth, and we all agree on that in the village. Okay, this social consensus and ledgering in our minds, it's only as scalable as a village. But now we're able to do that on a global scale without third parties, just peer-to-peer, right? So what does that represent for us as a society? Can we model our society on this governance framework inspired by Bitcoin, and that's what I want accountants to explore as a decentralized professional association. Oh, but unit of account. Sorry, Bitcoin, we understand store of value, means of exchange, unit of account. They're the three, that's what money does, okay? There's a lot of focus on store of value, digital gold. I'm holding on to my Bitcoin because number go up. And it is possibly a good store of value because there's only 21 million Bitcoin, that fixed supply. And as more people, more debt and everything just piles into Bitcoin, everything in the world will eventually become divided by 21 million, all the value in the world. Okay? So should Bitcoin really be the means of exchange? People are using Lightning wallets to pay for things, paying with Bitcoin, but you brought up before, I don't want to spend my Bitcoin, I want to save it. That's how people are thinking. So I like the idea with Bitcoin, you can be your own bank. That's the idea. I have self-custody of my asset and I've got to know how to secure that because I'm not trusting someone else to secure it for me. But I can be my own bank. But what else does a bank do? What else does a bank do? They provide finance, right? They provide loans to businesses to get started. So I'm a bank. I'm not just being my own bank, I can be a bank. I can my Bitcoin can be collateralized to provide liquidity and other things, and I can do that trustlessly on Bitcoin layer 2s, which I won't get into today. But coming back to unit of account, well, that's just the foundation of it. Like if everything in the world is divided by 21 million, Bitcoin is the unit of account that we can all agree on. We can all have our financial statements in the same. We don't have to be using Bitcoin as money. We could be using other currencies as money.
Stable coin.
Yeah. Even fiats, US dollar stable coins, any stable coin of any country, all currencies will be digital. So, it's all going to be digital. It's either going to be centralized or decentralized. But whatever it is, it should be accountable to Bitcoin. And so with the Bitcoin unit of account, that's what our balance sheet and profit and loss, everything is measured in. The pricing is done in Bitcoin. But it doesn't mean we're paying in Bitcoin. It's just accounted for in Bitcoin globally because it's the one thing we can all agree on because none of us can change it.
So the way you mentioned is like a measurement level where we're all doing our own thing. We can spend our quote unquote money, whatever we want, fiat, crypto, or stable coins, you name it. But everything is measured against Bitcoin.
It's all denominated to Bitcoin. Yeah. And there's just for reporting and pricing, this is why I believe El Salvador's got means of exchange, Bitcoin, but they haven't implemented Bitcoin as a unit of account, and until they do, there won't be widespread business adoption. Businesses need to be able to do their reporting in Bitcoin and their pricing in Bitcoin. As an accountant, I think that's what we can help with.
How big is the onboarding curve for all of these businesses and people to actually get to exercise this as Bitcoin as unit of account?
Well, I don't think it should be on them. It shouldn't be on them. It should be on us to introduce the concept and influence governments to accept that's how we're doing things now. We don't expect businesses, small businesses, big businesses in the world. This is not their job. Anyone who's an early mover, in emerging tech, they bear a cost. They bear higher accounting fees because they're having to do things, be compliant in a system that's not built for them, that it's built for an earlier economy, for traditional financial instruments that they're not using. It's hard. It's too hard for them. And so I think we need to lead the way and say, let's have a Bitcoin unit of account. This is how it'll work. And the best place replacing the US dollar as the global reserve asset, essentially, and who else is going to do that? It's going to be network school societies. We should lead that. Who else is going to? It's got to be us. We can't wait for everyone to do this in different countries. We just got to lead it and say this is how we do things. And
which goes back to the point that you were saying. We can't rewrite legislation. We have to replace it.
Piecemeal.
We have to build it.
Replace it. Just have our own.
On our own.
And that is the only way we are going to. I mean, why would we keep using the US dollar as our global reserve asset? It doesn't have to be ours. It might be the rest of the world's. But if we lead the way with Bitcoin as our unit of account and grow our numbers exponentially, we'll become the ones that others will follow. take over.
It's basically being a pioneer in the way that we are operating in this world from a really core point, which is a financial and taxation point of view. And if we can prove that this is a really good system that can work for network states and startup societies, then others can follow suit. And I can see governments probably starting from a small type of companies adopting and wanting to test out, because we will be the ones testing this. And for anyone who's watching, if you're still wanting to understand what we're talking about when we're saying a network state or a parallel society or startup society, we're talking about, think of it as a company that's a startup, and it's incubating and it's growing and it's being birthed into the world. So now with parallel societies and network states, they are basically doing the same. It's a society, and therefore we call it a startup society, because it's society as a service for people.
Yeah, and we're cloud-based. We're not geographically based. We're internet-based. But our numbers can be bigger than countries.
And then we come together and meet on the land as we travel the world, and different nodes get implemented around the world, either permanently or temporarily in some cases too, as associations of the permanent ones. Okay. And where I was going with this is that you are truly building something from the ground up, because we keep on saying here, if we cannot find what we're looking for, we go ahead and build it. And even in the conversations with my people who are here in this cohort, I can see it more and more that we're a bunch of builders, and
encouraging
you are
each other.
A builder in your own field when it comes to accounting, because you're not going to go and try to rewrite what's out there. It's impossible, especially when we're talking about global. A global scale, like you need, I don't know if that's even
that's it. We need to come at it fresh.
It's not possible to even comprehend.
Yeah.
But you're starting with the servicing point and angle of the people that are aligned with where you see the work going, and therefore servicing people who are a part of these network societies, which is already in its form quite a few thousands of people, because
who are starting businesses in the new digital businesses in the new world of crypto.
Yes.
And
Could be a couple
we
of
will
million
have quite an economy amongst ourselves that interacts with the rest of the world, that is, and so it's going to need its accountants. But why would we all be reporting to each other in US dollars or different currencies? We've got to have our standard reporting and pricing measure. I propose that's Bitcoin. I'm not proposing that we use Bitcoin as the means of exchange. We can use other currencies. But for accounting purposes, if it's going to work, as someone who automates accounting systems, I can tell you, you want to make sure it's you got a good system.
Yeah.
And so we can implement the governance and accounting systems for this to work, and to show, look, this works. As you said before, governments will then see, oh, look, this works. Let's all do it too and get on with business, rather than spending all our time trying to navigate these different tax systems and accounting standards that are built for the old world.
And
who wants to do that?
There's too many ways of exchange of cryptocurrency at the moment. We got Bitcoin, for example. We got the stable coins. We have so many tokens are coming through, meme coins.
And we're measuring them by US dollar. Why don't we start measuring everything by Bitcoin?
Right, which is like counterproductive of the whole point on why we're using crypto, because we go back to the old way, and then the governments keep on printing money, and inflation
bang on.
Is
I mean, it's not
raising,
it's not an honest measure, is it, the US dollar? Really?
Without being backed properly, it's just printing.
Yeah.
So I can see why you're saying it's a really good way to translate in all these other ways of cryptocurrency and fiat into one universal measurement system.
That's right, and it will not work if we insist on Bitcoin being the means of exchange. So tokenized Bitcoin and Bitcoin-backed stable coins and other digital currencies that can be... so it's a composite fractionalized money system that I'm contemplating. I don't have the technical skills to build it, but conceptually that's where I'm working, and I can lead it.
I was just going to ask you about that.
But I think it would be on Bitcoin layers that are anchored to Bitcoin, accountable to Bitcoin. We could run it that way with multiple currencies.
So is that where you may be looking for some sort of collaboration in order to build this software or system that can do all of that translation? And
we'll build a proof of concept in the next cohort of Network School. So I hope to come back and focus on that, because it'll give some sort of purpose and vision to accountants coming in this space. I'd like to get some other crypto accountants and some maybe people from Stacks and other Bitcoin layer 2s that would be interested in prototyping this and see what we can come up with. Yeah.
That's huge. Yeah, that's a really big idea.
Not something I can do on my own. No.
Absolutely, no. You need a team in order to, and you need the right people with the right vision and values in order to get the project going. Because I know you have been really busy and you have like so many different things going on, and you have your non-profit, and you're also teaching. Or have been teaching in other organizations.
Well, the great thing about being here for the last 90 days at Network School is that I've really clarified what I'm going to focus on. So it's I'm writing a blueprint, like a network state book kind of thing, of decentralized professional association, Bitcoin unit of account, and just focusing on that. So, but hopefully I can bring other people with similar skill sets to my own into Network School to move things on a bit faster than I can on my own.
Yeah, you need manpower behind that. And with that said, actually, as I'm speaking, I'm curious to know how many accountants are there in the world that are already in crypto. If you have like a ballpark reference or number, are we falling behind or?
Look, there are plenty of accountants in the last few years with crypto tax software and crypto tax reporting service providers to help accountants. There are many accountants who are saying yes to crypto clients that didn't before, but they're not all in, you know. So as for just purely crypto focused accountants, there aren't very many. No.
This is a very big opportunity for anyone who is...
With the level of adoption, it's quite low. You can't say, you know, I've had Bitcoiners tell me they don't want me as their accountant because I'm not a Bitcoin-only accountant. Well, if I was a Bitcoin-only accountant in Australia, I'd go broke really fast. What a waste of 25 years of expertise. So let's be realistic here. I work with other industries and Web3, and I have a rounded understanding of the ecosystem and different industries, and that's necessary in this space, that we have accountants who aren't just focused in just all the same niche. They have to have experience in all the different sort of industries and sectors, all different crypto and blockchain projects and Web3. You know, we need all this skill. People who are, you know, focused on valuations or M&A or taxation or other areas, you know, strategy. We've got to get all those people together, but have a good platform of collaboration. So, you know, I think with the procurement of services, there's an opportunity there. Like for people who come to me for services, I can't do everything that they ask for, and they don't want to go to a big firm. They want to deal with someone they know and trust, who has a good, trustworthy reputation, like me. So, but they'll trust who I refer to. So I don't have to do all the work. I can go, you've got all these different things going on. You've got a company in the US, you've got one in Panama, you're doing agriculture, and you've got all these personal sort of family wealth issues. So we need to collate a solution here. So I know the service providers, we can collaborate, but still be independent accountants. We don't have to be part of a big four firm. And we can then build a solution and say, we're going to collaborate to do all this for you, and then we all get paid. So, because
it's a team effort, because you need like different areas of specialization. You can, especially if it's like a global client too,
or even just individuals are actually many cases individuals are more complex. Individuals are more complex than businesses many of the time. Their affairs can be more complicated, especially if they're a startup founder and have businesses. You know, people have complex affairs, but individuals often don't have the financial resources that a big company does to pay for accountants. So we need to systemize everything as much as possible and collaborate to provide affordable services, so that people aren't doing it by themselves and with the help of ChatGPT and getting eaten out by tax officers. So yeah, Yeah,
Do you
that's what I
have
hope.
any horror stories on situations, or one that comes to mind of someone who, or a corporation that didn't comply and then the price was
who
pretty...
gets hurt? Who gets hurt? And we know the crypto exchanges like FTX, people got hurt. Okay, why weren't the regulators focusing on them? Why are they focusing on the innovators, the startups? Why are they, regulating us through enforcement? Instead of focusing on where we need them to focus is where there is trust. Okay, so people gave their money to this crypto exchange, and that crypto exchange, they didn't even have a team of internal accountants. They used some accountants, and they were using spreadsheets. They weren't using any kind of monthly reconciliation system, and had people's money. So why isn't that being regulated? Why is a crypto startup with tokens? It should be regulated, but there's too much focus, So I just think it needs to be something that is more led by us than by governments, and that's where I come into the sort of accountability and advocacy role and trust of accountants. We do that better than regulators. I think we can. With open blockchain systems, open and permissionless systems, and accountants, that's going to provide social protection better, less in a knee-jerk way, more proactively, more collaboratively and effectively in this fast-changing move into a digital, decentralised economy than governments can keep up with. Really, maybe we just need to sort of get into that mindset that we can replace a lot of the functions of government and have just assert a public mandate to do that. I'm getting on my soapbox now, watch out.
I love it. See this passion. Like, have you ever met an accountant with this much love for what she's doing? I personally haven't.
Thank you, Elsa. Well, I just hope it rubs off, and yeah.
Yes, you got a really big responsibility ahead, and I love everything that you are up to, and I have learned so much from you. So you got a really big 2025 ahead of you. And before we start wrapping things up, do you service more individuals or corporations in case anyone is interested in reaching out to you, ask questions, or asking for any references or whatnot?
Well, I work mainly with businesses, but I also work with the individuals that are associated with those businesses. Creators and innovators in the crypto and Web3 space are my focus. So they can be individuals, but I don't generally work with sort of traders. I deal with builders and creators and businesses. So, I've worked with crypto exchanges, getting their accounting systems in order, and to Web3 companies that don't have bank accounts, but have companies in, their entity groups around the world. But they're often, just a few people behind them and not very big organisations. You can have quite a large organisation with just a couple of people these days in the digital economy. So, yeah.
That's the new thing.
Yeah, the future is freelance and quite
and a lot of the automation
different.
now on systems and admin, you can have less overhead.
We love that. Come on, accountants have got to love that. All those costs of agencies and overheads means bigger profits.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So with that said, where can people find more about you, and where can they get a hold of you?
Okay, well, they can just look me up at electrafrost.com and everything will be there. All the things I'm doing, whatever takes your interest, follow the link and get in touch with me. I'm quite accessible. I'm very active on LinkedIn, fairly so on X, and happy to hear from people who want to collaborate.
And just so you know, her real name is Electra, so it's not a pseudonym. I just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, I'm pretty easy to find, Electra Frost,
yes,
on the
you
internet.
will be the only one that shows up like
Yeah.
that. Well, thank you, Electra, so much. As always, I can talk to you for another 3 hours, and I'm sure that we'll have another conversation in the upcoming months, because every time I speak with you, there's always something new to learn, and this is literally just the top of the iceberg on everything else that you are also working on. And you and I have had other conversations on so many other projects and ideas that we have been helping each other talk out, and there's so much more to uncover. So I feel that this is part one.
Thank you. It's a pleasure speaking with you, Alta.
Oh, wow.
I look forward to our next chat.
Yes. Well, thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.